Okay, let me introduce you to the collection here that we have. Quite a panel. Sergeant Jude Eden, she is a former Marine and Iraq War veteran. Pete Scobell, he is a former Navy SEAL. That's a short title, and boy, he's done a lot. Sergeant Greg STUBE, he is a former member of Special Forces Green Berets, and from Washington, D.C., Lieutenant General Jerry BOYKIN. He is a former Deputy Undersecretary of Defense and Executive Vice President of the Family Research Council General. Let me start with you. Why is this happening? What is the... I'm sorry, but I don't trust this administration to take anything at face value. Why are they doing this?
Well, I'll give you a couple of thoughts on this issue, Glenn. First of all, I can't add much to your opening monologue, but I think that there is no consideration for readiness, so it has to be to appease the liberal base, the feminist movement. I would also tell you that I think that this is a trap for those of us with traditional American values, because I think it will be used against us as we stand in opposition to this. They'll use it against us to perpetuate this myth of a war on women. So I think we've got to be very careful in our dialogue on this. I am opposed to it for a number of reasons, but I'll get into those as we go through the program.
So let me go with you, Jude. Because I think he's right. This will be a war on women. You know, the four of us guys. You're the only one that's pretty safe here. Four of us guys, no matter what we say, trashed for saying these things.
Well, since women are fighting in the combat zone, we have a track record that we can look at of the problems with women deploying and women fighting on the front lines, or the front lines that don't exist anymore. Nothing's going to change the fact that women's skeletons are smaller. We have 20% less lung capacity. We have about 40% less muscle mass. The military is already has a double standard for men and women in every branch. It's specifically documented in the physical fitness test. We get longer times to do our run. We do the arm hang instead of pull-ups, at least when I was in and I got out in 2008. So women are fighting in these combat zones, having been trained on a lower standard.
Which puts them, you want to talk about sexist or a war on women. We don't have an
equal opportunity to survive.
To live. Yeah. You have a greater chance of dying because we've lowered the standard. We're saying, oh, but you're so sweet. We're going to give you...
because that standard is lower for women, that means that the overall standard of the military is lower. So that it comes back to that military readiness. This is about preparing for war. And also I'd like to say that, even I did entry checkpoint duty. That's frisking the women for explosive devices. There are women who do the patrol. They're MPs and stuff like that. And there's a risk of violence, and there's a risk of getting an IED or getting into a firefight. But that is very, very different from the hard-pounding, go in aggressively, and kill.
I know you guys, and I know I have a lot of SEAL friends who are beat. They come back and your bodies are trashed because of the literal beatings that you take all the time.
And these are a lot harder on women's bodies than they are on men's.
You're a black belt, right?
Yes.
You could kick my butt now until Tuesday. Can you go into a fight with somebody else, a Navy SEAL, and
no, and even it doesn't matter that there's one strong woman who is better than a mediocre man. That's not the standard. If they were really serious about equality, about proving that women can do everything that men can do, they would say, okay, today you all have to meet the men's standard. No changes. And they don't do that because they know that we'd lose about half our women from the military. It's not to say that there are lots of wonderful, honorable roles that women can do in the military. They don't have the problems that we see in the deployments with women leave the battlefield 3 times as much as men, and 74% of the time it's due to pregnancy. You want your platoon sergeant to suddenly have to leave the battlefield.
Okay, so let me go kind of in that direction. Everything that I know about the military, especially when you get into special forces, you get into the SEAL teams and everything else, it's about brotherhood. You keep everybody together for as long as you can, and every single one, man, they don't ever want to leave. What do you do when you introduce things that go against nature? Men are trained to, and it's a good thing, to protect, to look after. We also have it in us, you know, I remember being a 22-year-old and, you know, I'm almost 50 now. I still got it going where you're like, she's hot. And if you got testosterone and adrenaline running through you after a really physical thing, there's got to be that nature that says, hey, now what happens to your team?
Well, I mean, I think the strength of special operations in general is the culture. And that's what we've been developing over decades. I mean, this isn't something overnight. We didn't just wake up and say, hey, we're going to create, you know, Joint Special Operations Command. This has been decades in the making. And the heart of it is the culture. So when you basically dictate to us and say, okay, you're going to take women. What you're going to do is you're going to force cultural change at an institutional level. And in doing that, you're going to reduce the capability of the force. Not because women aren't capable, but because you are disrupting the culture, and that is the heart of who we are. It's the backbone of the brotherhood you speak of.
Disrupting the culture in what way? Disrupting the culture. I mean, what I'm talking about here is, and I mean, maybe I'm alone in this, but I'm sorry, she's not going to be attracted to me, but I can tell you that I would be attracted to a woman at some point living in close quarters, especially if we're sharing the same space. And if it's not me, it's another one of my brothers that is going to, and then I start to feel like, hey, what are you doing, man? We're a teammate here, and it becomes all these dynamics.
All the problems that you have with coworkers getting involved together, right. whether it becomes a bad breakup or whether there's a perception of favoritism, which breeds resentment. All these things destroy, or if there's a sexual assault, all that absolutely destroys unit cohesion.
What happens to you if she's out? If these two are your fighting comrades, and they're both in equally bad situations, which one are you going to choose to help first?
Well, in our society, the way I know it, it's dishonorable not to put a woman first.
Right.
But in this case, if they're to be treated equal in a combat unit, to show any preference towards her is sex discrimination against him.
And what does that do again to us? What does that do to guys? What does that do?
Can we deprogram our very nature and our primal instinct?
Not at all.
Should we?
Because then this is we're asking men to turn off their most wonderful attribute, their most wonderful primal instinct to protect women. We don't want a world in which men, ignore the women or just treat them like everybody else.
General, if I'm not mistaken, I think you started one of the Special Forces groups. Am I mistaken, sir?
Well, I was a original member of the Delta Force.
Yeah, okay. So original Delta Force. Do you see any of this logic that I'm going towards here on this first part, that you're claiming that nature is bogus and can be dismissed?
Well, first of all, I agree with what your other guests have said, and you cannot violate the laws of nature without paying a penalty. And look, Glenn, we pass laws. In fact, I'm in Washington right now, and there are laws being developed right now to protect women from domestic abuse and that type of thing. And then on the other hand, we turn around and say we're going to thrust you into an infantry or a special forces or a SEAL unit, and we expect you to fix your bayonet and attack a man that may be twice your size. That is inconsistent with our values, and it is illogical, but most of all, it does nothing for readiness for what we're trying to do here.
It also, and then we'll move on to something because we got to take a quick break, but it violates common sense that if I'm beating you up, if I'm hitting you, I'm arrested and I'm immediately the bad guy. If you're hitting me, I'm a wimp. The society does not react the same way. We are not equal, and everybody knows that when it comes to physical stuff.
Right.
It's just not the same.
And we all know that, and the proponents of this are all brushing off all the scientific stuff, all the physical, biological stuff, as if it's a passé argument. These things will never change. We will always be smaller in stature than men. You know, you want to think about, put your daughter in the military gear at 100 pounds with a pack and a rifle and your knife, and go do an obstacle course, and then put her in the ring with a UFC fighter, a male UFC fighter with a knife.